All right.
Oh, all righty. Good evening, late afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Um, so I am Jennifer Spadafora, school committee member, and I'm here with Adam Weldi, who's also a school committee member, and we will be moderating this evening's forum. We also have the pleasure of Rosetta Languages joining us, and they will be our translators for this evening. So after our brief introduction, we will hand it over to Danielle, and he will kick off the introductions of all of our interpreters individually in their native languages and explain how you can follow along in that aspect. And today we are here welcoming Lihia Noriega-Murphy, finalist for Superintendent of Schools here in Malden. So after we do our introduction, I will kick it off to you to do an introduction before we get into the questions. That sound good?
Right. Yeah.
Wonderful. Anything to add, Adam?
We're very excited to have you, and we look forward to getting to hear more.
Thanks.
Great. So without further ado, Rosetta Languages.
Thank you, Jen and Adam. My name is Danielle. I'm here with our team from Rosetta Languages, providing interpretation into 7 languages. English speakers, you guys can just hold tight for a moment while we introduce ourselves in each language and tell folks how to get on the language channels. I will start with Arabic. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أهلا وسهلا بكم في هذا الاجتماع. سيكون لدينا الترجمة باللغة العربية. أنا اسمي دانيال، أنا مع شركة روزيتا لانجويجز في خدمتكم. إذا أردتم الترجمة ادخلوا على رمز الكرة الأرضية واختار اللغة العربية، وبعد ذلك ستتمكن من الاستماع إلى صوتي باللغة العربية خلال الاجتماع. إذا كنت تتصل من هاتف محمول فعليك الضغط على 3 نقط وبعد ذلك اختيار المزيد من الخيارات، ترجمة للغات ثم اللغة العربية ثم تم. إذا كان لديكم أي أسئلة يا ريت ممكن ترفعوا أصواتكم أو تكتبوا في صندوق الدردشة. شكرا جزيلا. And now I'll pass it over to Emily for Spanish.
Buenas noches todo el mundo, me llamo Emily y voy a servir de intérprete para ustedes hoy noche. Si usted quiere incorporarse en el canal de interpretación, lo podrá hacer en algunos momenticos cuando encendemos la función. Puede ir al fondo de su pantalla y habrá un globito, puede hacer clic en el globo y ahí escoger Spanish para escuchar la presentación en español. Si se están conectando tras su móvil, puede ir a los 3 puntitos y ahí hacer clic y escoger el idioma de interpretación, y cuando termina simplemente hace clic en a donde dice done. Y si tiene algunas dificultades, por favor ponga algo en el chat o levanta la manito con el iconito de la mano. Muchas gracias. I pass it to Portuguese now.
Oi, boa noite, meu nome é Raíssa, vou ser seu intérprete português hoje. Se você gostaria de ouvir essa reunião em português, você pode entrar no canal de interpretação. Daqui a alguns minutinhos a gente vai ativar os canais e um globo vai aparecer na parte de baixo da sua tela. Por favor, clique... Hi, can you hear me? Ok, sorry. Desculpa, eu vou continuar. Então, você vai ver um globo na parte de baixo da sua tela, aí você pode escolher português. Se você está participando através de um celular, você pode escolher as 3 bolinhas na parte de baixo da sua tela, escolher mais ou more e escolher português. Depois você vai clicar done ou feito. Se você tiver dificuldades, por favor, fale alguma coisa ou pode escrever no chat e a gente vai te ajudar. So I will now pass it to Haitian Creole.
Ok, bonsoir tout le monde. Mon nom c'est Nikita Lamont, je interprète à soir après-midi en créole. Donc, nous avons interprété à soir dans 7 langues. Donc, là, nous parlons par une fonction. Nous parlons d'un petit globe qui fonctionne pour interprète là. Donc, on a choisi Haitian Creole. les nous finissons si l'ordinateur, on a choisi Haitian Creole, on a pris 3 petits points. Après ça, on a choisi Haitian Creole. Si c'est celui-là, on a pas qui marqué mort, on a pas côté 3 petits points, on a pas mort. Les filles, on a cliqué mort, on a cliqué Haitian Creole. Après ça, on a mis done. So, si nous avons un problème sur technique là, nous sommes capables mettons en chat, il y a Adam qui est là, qui répond nous. Donc, en suivre, qui nous parle en fonction pour interprétation. OK? Qu'on a passé le Vietnamese. OK. Vietnamese, I'm going to pass it to Vietnamese interpreter.
Chào quý vị, tên tôi là Phương và tôi sẽ là thông dịch cho tiếng Việt. Quý vị có thể lắng nghe buổi họp này bằng tiếng Việt bằng cách thâm dịch vào kênh thông dịch. Thêm vài phút nữa chúng tôi sẽ mở những cái kênh này và quý vị sẽ thấy một hình tượng quả địa cầu trên màn hình của quý vị. Nhấn vào quả địa cầu và chọn tiếng Việt. Nếu quý vị đang dùng phone thông minh thì nhấn vào 3 dấu chấm để lựa chọn thêm. Lựa phiên dịch ngôn ngữ rồi lựa tiếng Việt, sau đó bấm vào làm xong. Nếu có khó khăn gì xin vui lòng lên tiếng hoặc viết vô trong khung chat và chúng tôi sẽ giúp quý vị. Và nếu có phản hồi về sự kiện của ngày hôm nay cũng xin vui lòng lên tiếng hoặc là nghĩ rằng chúng tôi có thể làm tốt hơn. Xin góp ý. Cảm ơn quý vị. And now I'll pass it to Mandarin.
大家好，我的名字叫 Terry， 我今天是会给大家做这个国语的翻译哈，所以呢，待会呢，我们在几分钟之内呢，就会把这个屏幕下方的翻译功能打开。你们在这个屏幕的下方可以看到有一个地球仪的按钮，你们按一下这个地球仪的按钮，就可以选择中文，就是国语的翻译了。那如果大家是用手机或者是用平板电脑上来的话呢，你们可以点这个3个点哈，然后选择更多。然后就有这个语言的选项，然后你们可以同样的选择国语的翻译。好，我的同事 Anna 呢会给大家翻译这个广东话的翻译。好 ，I'll pass it to Anna, please.
Thank you. 大家好，我名係 Anna， 我會為大家提供廣東話嘅同步翻譯。我哋係來自 Rosetta 語言嘅團隊，我哋今晚有7種唔同語言嘅同步翻譯。如果你想聽到廣東話嘅同步翻譯服務嘅時候咧，你到熒光屏咧會見到一個嘅地球儀，咁你去撳嗰個地球儀，去揀 Cantonese 咧，咁你就應該聽到廣東話同步翻譯噶啦。如果你睇唔到呢個地球儀嘅話咧，或者你嘅電腦或者手機冇呢個功能嘅咧，咁就麻煩你一定要去 Zoom 網址更新最新嘅版本噶啦。多謝大家 ，Thank you, all set. I pass it back on to Danielle.
Thank you, Anna. And just a reminder to all the interpreters to turn on your microphones, make sure you're not on mute, and then Adam will be putting us on the channels. So we can begin.
All right. I will hit start. Just a reminder, on the bottom Zoom bar, you should see a globe that says interpretation. So make sure to click that and you'll have access to all of our amazing interpreters. So I'm going to hit start and away you go. Please, just as a reminder before Lihia begins, if you have any questions you'd like to put in chat ahead of time, please do so. And just a reminder to the folks coming in, please try to keep yourself on mute to avoid the background noise. Without further ado, we're really excited to welcome Lihia Noriega-Murphy.
Thank you so much. This is so exciting to just hear the different languages that exist in Malden. I'm sure there are more, but I want to thank the interpreters and also Jen and Adam for the introduction. This is amazing. Good evening, community members, family, students, and I have to acknowledge also that my sister is part of this. So I just had to acknowledge that. And I just had to say, thank you so much for taking the time to be here tonight to hear me present, introduce myself, and also to talk about why I'm exploring and also looking to become your new superintendent. So my name is Lihia Noriega-Murphy. I am from Guatemala. I have been working in Boston Public Schools for 26 years. I'm one of 8 siblings, so I come from a large family. We are loud, we love to eat, and we love to communicate all the time. I also love to travel. I have visited 32 countries, and I wish I can, and I would love to visit more after COVID. I have been meeting with students, with central office staff, with school leaders, with school committee members, and it has been amazing. Thank you for always making me feel very welcome. My experience has been in Boston Public Schools for 26 years. I started actually as a student. I went to high school for 3 months and I graduated from Boston Public Schools. I was a teacher for 12 years, a school leader in several schools, and I also went to central office and served as an assistant superintendent. With my job as an assistant superintendent, I was able to supervise 37, and then we closed some schools, 34 high schools, and also oversee 16,000 students. The schools that we had are totally different in elements, that some autonomous, some exempt schools, pilot schools. So that gave me a great opportunity to be working with different leaderships and also to look at different policies. I had the great opportunity to be invited to the White House 2 times to present what we created in Boston Public Schools, in one of my schools, as a team with teachers and school leaders and also guidance counselors, the multi-tier intervention plans for students. By saying that is that we focus on how to support students that were struggling in school. I also had the opportunity to build a partnership with 70 partners, faith-based organizations, private sector, schools, educational settings, and it has been amazing to work with partners who help us to work with the community and also in the schools. I was able, I'm very lucky to work with different superintendents, where I was part of the school, the district-wide accountability system, where we build some metric systems on how to measure our work. I have also been very fortunate to work with the culture proficiency training in Boston Public Schools and also in the schools that I have been leading. I'm looking forward to your questions. I love working with families. Have been very lucky that in the schools and in the district that I work with, we were able to build training for parents on how to help them find jobs, how to write resumes, how to be building those skills that they needed to find jobs, but at the same time, being able to hire parents who are professionals to come into the schools. Currently, I'm working at the Jacksonville as a school leader. It's a K-8 school. And I am able to hire some parents to work with us. And that is something I would love to bring to the district, is how do we actually cultivate trust, relationships, build the capacity, and be able to have parents working in our schools. I do believe that makes a big difference when we have partners and parents working with us in the classrooms. And I see some familiar faces from other forums that I have seen. So hello again. Thank you for joining us here. And thank you for coming back to listen to what I have to just say in my introduction. I have been able to open schools. I will open the Boston Arts Academy. It's the first performing and visual school in Boston. I believe that arts and sport is a very good way to engage students. At the same time, I believe in students having access to career as well as a high level of instruction. I would love for the students in Malden Public Schools to graduate with a high school diploma and also credentials for careers. And I can see that you have an amazing list of courses that are offered in all your wonderful high schools, but I would like to see how we can also tap and offer some of those courses to families in the evenings or on Saturdays, so we can build that capacity and be able to, once again, create a pipeline for hiring so parents and community members can become part of the Malden District Schools. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that introduction. So community members, it's your turn. If you would like to ask a question, please use the raised hand function, or feel free to put your question in the chat. And it looks like we have our first question from Patrick Fitzgerald. Excuse me.
Thank you, Jen and Adam, for hosting. Welcome, Ms. Noriega-Murphy. We're excited to have you. We appreciate the time that you're giving us to get to know you and answer questions. My question for you is, with your experience in administration with the Boston Public Schools, what have you come to believe as essential roles and responsibilities of a district central administrative office? And likewise, what do you see as ideal roles and responsibilities within the same?
Thank you for your question. One of the things that I learned is how do we create a multi-year budget with a strategic plan? So how do we base the needs of the schools, not in what happens in a yearly basis, but actually looking in a trajectory of a 5 or 10-year strategic plan. So we can start foreseeing things that happen and looking at what are the resources that we have centrally that can be deployed also to schools, and also to generate a list of partners that can be helpful to us by providing some services to our students at low cost. So that is something that I learned, and it will be something I would love to bring to Malden, and that is the multi-year budget and strategic planning per school and also as a district. The other area that I would love to explore is how do we get our youngsters to stay in schools and the dropout rate? That is something I would love to explore more, to see how do we support students so they stay in our schools, they graduate, and they come back to the schools. Once again, to me, the community is very important, and is how do they go to college and come back and they start serving as teachers, administrators, and hopefully at some point, the superintendent of Malden Public Schools, after I leave, will be a person within our own schools. How do we nurture that? What do I see is that it will be a learning curve for me, because as you can see, I have been, all my career has been in Boston Public Schools. So I would love to do an asset mapping, meeting with school leaders for them to describe the schools, looking at the systems that they have developed and see what works, what doesn't work, and how do we collaborate to build a powerful system. Not that I'm imposing things that one size fits all, because each school has a different population. Each school has their own DNA, but it's how do we actually make sure that all the students, all the families get an equal balance of support. The same thing with the teachers. What is the professional development that each individual needs, school, and also what the district can offer? Thank you.
Thank you. If you could just follow up, what kind of staff do you see you would need to be able to achieve those goals?
Well, once again, it's a learning curve. So therefore, I would love to see everybody that is working in the district. I'm not planning to replace people. I am planning to work together and to see, once again, in our vision, in a 90-day plan, building that 90-day plan together with the school leaders to find out how we can support each other. And then when we look and I do the assessment, then I will be able to answer that to you. But at this moment, it would be a learning curve. So I cannot change things that I do not know.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So our next question, it comes from the chat from Dexy Garcia. And she says, I enjoy your energy. What's the first goal that you have for the district?
The first goal is to see how we are going to start September after COVID. And that is a real concern that I have. I do not know when, especially now summer is going to be there, what would be the plan? How do we get ready for September? Knowing that some students would like to stay remote, some faculty members still hesitant to come back because there are so many things that we do not know. More things we are going to know, but COVID is still there. It's your reality. So that would be one of my priorities, to start right away to see how are we getting ready for our students, faculty, and staff to come back in September if we're going to be all together or not, look at the space, look at the budget that we have, safety first. How do we get our buildings ready during this summer? So when we start receiving our students, we will be actually ready for them, ready for our faculty. So that is one of the first things I would love to go and explore, look at the budget again, and how to maximize the resources in the schools. So when and I'm sorry, I say babies, but when our students come to school and faculty and staff, it will be a safe place for them to learn and for teachers to teach. That is at this moment what is in my head, and that will be my priority.
And our next question also comes from chat, from Heather Barry. Would you explain your approach to special education and what processes would you like to implement?
Thank you for the question. And one thing, once again, is to learn more about the special ed services, IEPs, how many 504s we have, what type of special ed students do we have, because the special ed students have so many different needs, inclusion from actually autism, for emotional impairment. So I would love to get the makeup of the student population that we have, what are the IEPs are saying, and what are the services that we said that the district will provide to them. And also meeting with families to hear what else can we provide to them, what has been the experience, meeting with the teachers who are everyday servicing the students and paraprofessionals to see how do we actually, once again, going to September, what the classroom setting is going to look like for the students. I would like to look at the curriculum. I would like to see the numbers of students who are out of placement, out of the district, and looking more at anything else is how are they doing, like health-wise. Do our nurses have conversations with them about what is the need that we have? So it will be a learning curve. I am sort of very familiar with special ed, but more than anything would be learning from the practitioners that actually have the students every day there and from the parents. So I would be doing a lot of reading first, and that would be the IEPs with teachers who know the students, and then meeting with the school leaders to find out what are the settings that we are creating for the students in order for them to be successful. They can get a high school diploma, and if not, what it's going to look like for the students who are non-diploma bound. What are we offering them in terms of life skills preparation, and how do we actually build those rapport in the schools, and not to isolate the students. I believe in inclusion, and I believe in full inclusion. Something that might not happen right away, something that I know is happening in the schools, but I would love to explore it with teachers, school leaders about how full inclusion looks like.
And actually, Bonnie, if it's okay, if I take this question in chat, because it's a good segue. Emily says, hello, and thank you for providing us this platform to meet with our community. You mentioned asset mapping. Would you see the inclusion student as an asset to the classroom or as an obligation, and why?
It's an asset. It's amazing to have, and they're students. The difference is that there's an IP, that there's extra support that they need in certain areas, but they are part of the community. So I don't like to separate that. It's too bad you have to call inclusion. It should be just a class, but I see them as an asset. And at the same time is how do we provide them with high level of instruction to make sure they're going to be successful? What strategies are we going to be using in the classrooms that benefits all the students? Because I don't want to teach just to the students in the inclusion classes. Is every single student should be learning the same skills, the tier 1 instruction, differentiating, and making sure that all the students are learning at the same level by providing them with the support that they need. So absolutely it's an asset to the schools, including the students that are non-diploma bound, that need more support. It's amazing to see them in the hallways, in the classroom, because that's life. And so it would be great to see that in every single school.
Fantastic. And I'll turn it over to Bonnie.
Hi, Bonnie again. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
I have another question. I actually wrote it out. I'm better at writing. I'm I'm a preparer. So I actually have like one question, like 3 questions that are all related. What are your thoughts about accelerated programs or classes for students at any grade level, including the high school, who qualify, for these students who qualify and have proven the ability to be a part of an accelerated program or class? Do you welcome these programs and classes, no matter the makeup of the student body in the program? And do you believe these programs and classes should not be eliminated to allow for opportunities for the students who are academically qualified? Does that all make sense?
Just like acceleration, just that in Boston Public Schools is for the students who have gaps in learning. So I want to make sure that I do understand that in Malden, the acceleration, to accelerate the acceleration program is for students who are mastering the standards in a higher level. I just want to make sure that clarifications. Yeah, thank you so much. I would totally believe in that. I think that the students want to continue achieving a higher level. We should provide those settings for them. I think that having IB programs really makes a difference for the students, providing them with opportunities. I don't think that we should have one size fits all teaching and learning, because that's not how we function. We do have to embrace the students who are pushing themselves to a higher level and who can achieve in a higher level. Absolutely, yes. And we have to develop, once again, a learning curve, dual enrollment, where students might not be in our classrooms, they might be in colleges, they might be in different settings, already getting credit for what they know and they can do. So I do believe in increasing that program, because it should be very diverse. Parents should be aware, every single parent should be aware of what the district is offering, and at the same time create those opportunities for more of dual enrollment, where students can get credits, and when they go to college, they already have credits in there, which will benefit the students and families financially in a great scale.
Can I just follow up? Is that okay, Adam, Jen? So that these programs, if they were there, the accelerated, if they did not have the diversity that we want, just because we're still working on that, if they did not have the diversity we want, would you still keep programs, or would you eliminate because it wasn't diverse?
It's not to eliminate, it's an opportunity to look at our own practices and to start supporting and creating a pipeline of diverse students to go into these programs. Closing is never an option for programs that are actually serving students. It's just how we actually can create support systems, create the pipeline of getting more students to have access to these programs. And therefore, we will have to look at the elementary level, middle school level, how we can start supporting the students and allow students to get into the program where we are going to provide more support. They might need tutors, but giving students access is what I'm looking for.
Thank you.
Oh, Jen, you're still muted. It's the theme of 2021.
It is. And most of the time I'm muted so you don't hear my kids fighting in the background.
Oh.
So our next question comes to us from Susan Lawrence. And she asks, despite our demographics, our Malden district has very poor representation of educators and counselors of color. We also have extremely poor retention, with previous administrators allowing the rupture of relationships with too many Black staff who faced hostility from peers and immediate supervisors. There's still nowhere in the district for staff or families to bring equity issues related to race. How do you see your role as a superintendent in moving us forward towards a racially equitable school culture?
Thank you for that question. And I will definitely focus on culture proficiency, look at the policies that exist and how we can revamp those policies. I was able to meet with a staff member from central office that is in charge of hiring. And the question for me was, where's the pipeline within our own schools where we can have, and I would have to say most of the work that our Black population, Latino population, or minority populations hold is usually lunch monitors, paraprofessionals, is how do we create that pipeline so they become educators? How do we actually a partnership with colleges so they can actually be part of the teaching leadership in our schools? I have zero tolerance for racist practices. So when we hear things, we have to act. And that will be, I would love to have the training in every single school about how do we build a culture proficiency in working together. And I don't say tolerate, because tolerate means that you're just accepting something. That doesn't mean that we are addressing the issue. It's how do we change the practices? Zero tolerance means that we hear things and sometimes we ignore them. It's no, how do we address them and build together? Because I believe that sometimes practices is because of, and I'm going to use the word, ignorance or habits that people have built. So providing opportunities for people to work together. And once again, creating a pipeline of employees of color, teachers of color, school leaders of color, where we can actually tap into that. Sometimes it's a challenge to find staff of color who want to work in environments that are not welcoming. So we have to work in creating school cultures where we feel welcome, central office culture where we feel welcome, where having an accent is not an issue, it's an asset. Where you have different belief system is also an asset. So that is something that I will definitely start looking into, because it's a conversation that I have here in every single forum. And I would like to have a group of school leaders, school staff, family members, students, and also community at large on how do we address this as a community, because it's not just a school issue, it's a community issue. Once again, a pipeline providing with access to colleges where we can actually create a pipeline for new staff to come. Now, the fear will be, my gosh, she's coming and she's going to fire me because I am not a person of color. And that's not what I'm saying. Is there are opportunities where there are openings in our schools at the district level that we can take advantage of and look at all the candidates that we have in there. So that is what I'm talking about. How do we build a community where we welcome all the differences and also help each other to come up and become school leaders? And once again, after I leave, the new superintendent should be coming from one of the schools. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I'm going, the next question is going to build upon Susan's question. And that is, can you give examples of how you've brought diverse faculty in the schools where you have worked?
Yes. Currently, I'm in a school that diversity was not among staff, teaching staff, and it was very limited to paraprofessionals. Every opening that was in the school, I was able to hire staff of color, and they are paraprofessionals that we are working on. And when working on it, like working together for them to get their master's degree, their bachelor's degree, their teaching license, and for them to become teachers. I have there are 2 lunch monitors that just took an assessment so they can become paraprofessionals. They know the school, and now they're improving their education. And that's the pipeline that we are, when I say creating a pipeline, I'm doing it right now. We are doing it together. And one of the things that when I talk to the lunch monitors is that what kind of support they needed. And we needed just to review the test. We needed so many things, technology, and then hopefully by next week, there will be paraprofessionals in our classrooms. And there are paraprofessionals who will become teachers, who I already said, they are open in this school. So just within, not even a whole year, because COVID happened, I started in September, then in March, we went remote, to now, I have been able to bring 12 people of different cultures to become part of the staff. And that's what I want people to be able to reflect the culture of the students, but at the same time is how do we support our students to respect people that don't look like them.
Thank you. Our next question from the chat is from Rebecca Epler-Epstein. She says, thank you for being here today. How would you ensure that Malden's diverse student population has access to culturally relevant education that honors their lived experiences and is honest about the systems of power and oppression in this country?
Thank you. Thank you for saying this country, because it's not Malden, it is the nation itself. It's when we look at the curriculum, I would love to see how we could revamp it. And when I say revamp, is that we cannot say that we are an anti-racist district when we just added a book that is reflecting our culture. It's actually looking at our practices. How are we going to look at the curriculum? What is in there? Our practices. Going back to the policies, I'm not very familiar with Malden Public Schools policies, but I want to see from the lens that we have about the culture proficiency. How do we our own practices are actually adjusting to what we are saying? And one thing that we want to do is diversify our staff, make sure that our students feel respected, honor, and that we honor every single culture, every single language that is spoken in the schools. How do we do that? As a team, as a group, having an advisory team by students. And I was able to meet with students in a forum, and that was something that they asked, is how do we actually get our voices heard when we look and sound different? And that would be good to get the input. Once again, this is a changing collaboration. This is not just my thinking and what Ligia wants to do right away. This is about how we collaborate, how we change the district, how we actually set platforms to hear the voices of parents, school communities, and the community at large. So going back there, how do we do that transformation? And I call it transformation because it has to change mindsets, habits, and practices. And the only way to do that is having honest conversations. We can have trainings, but if we don't practice what we learn, it's just another check mark that we did it. It's also looking at what is in our curriculum. How do we actually assign students to different schools? And what are the things that we give to the schools, creating equity, which doesn't mean equal, but to give access to all our students to be successful.
Thank you. So our next question, again in the chat, comes from Urga, and she would like to know, can you give an example of how you would address incidents of racism and microaggressions against students and educators of color within the district?
Thank you. It is going back to the policies that we have. How do we have structures and systems that actually can address these issues? And what do I say policies and structures is because we cannot just react to things in isolated issues. We have to create something that the district embraces as a practice, and the practice of zero tolerance. And how to do that is by holding people accountable, bringing the teams together, trying to do mediation. So going back to the systems and structures, mediation. What happened? Trying to hear the voices. And sometimes mediation doesn't work because the aggression has been to a point that is not possible. And there's a legal responsibility to bring this to that level where we had to report it. Discrimination is against the law. And how do we actually have that written in our policies? Once again, revising, because if this happened in another setting, we want to make sure that we have already systems in place, process in place, and that people know about it. So when people feel like something's happening to them, they know what channels they have to follow in order to be heard, in order to be feeling safe, and that there is going to be also honesty about how we come to a conclusion or how we solve the issue, either within the schools, within the district, or going back to what is the law in the state of Massachusetts.
Thank you.
Great. We've got one more question that was messaged to me in chat that says, where do you think you would need the most support as a new superintendent?
Okay. Besides having coffee every day, I would love to have time to visit the schools or to meet with community members, have the time. So somebody who knows the city very, very well, that we can open spaces where I can meet with families, with students, and at the same time with meeting with faith-based organizations and school leaders. How do I envision that this is going to happen is to create a calendar of the areas where I should go and meet with people. I don't like people coming to me, even though it's very convenient. And now with Zoom, it's extra convenient to have this, but I would love to meet with people to be able to develop that relationship. I am a person who loves to be out there, the hallways and schools, and the same thing, that is my style, is to get in the car, get to know the neighborhood, and be able to talk to people about what do you think about the district? How do you think what do you think we should need to be doing together? And what do I need the most? Is somebody to give me a map of where to park. But then otherwise it would be just to go and be in the community, be in our schools, get to know the students, get to know the faculty, and get to know our amazing school leaders.
Awesome. And I'll turn it over to Patrick.
Thank you, Adam. Ms. Noriega-Murphy, do you have any experience with collective bargaining or other union activities?
Yes, I do. I was very fortunate to work very closely with the new current BTU president when we developed the new contract for teachers. At that time, I was in another school, an assistant superintendent, but I was working in another school where they had to come and meet with me to develop that, to work together. We have been able to draft the language of certain parts of the contract, especially with the teacher support, with grievances, and also negotiating staffing salaries. So I have been part of many aspects of what the union, and not with only that union, but with other unions that we have here in Boston. And I do have experience. It has been positive. It has been a way that we can collaborate, as long as we are very clear about that the students are always the center of our work.
How do you feel about open negotiations?
I think it's a good way to find out what both parties want and need. Bring information, bring data. Conversations is huge for me. It's just to listen, to find out what is the perspective that we have, and be able to see what works best for the students. Once again, if we all go to the table with the students at the center of our work, we can find common grounds.
Thank you.
I guess I'll take this one, and I'm going to pass it over to Susan Lawrence, who has her hand up.
I want to take that hand down.
Oh,
How do I do that? There it is. Thank you. So this is a follow-up to a couple questions, including my earlier one. Around the microaggressions and the harm that's been done in the schools, and no one was able to find a track to report it and find some resolution. I really liked your ideas about accountability and policies and practices needing to be there. So it's not like a what do we do reaction kind of thing. And that people will know where to take their problems. I have two questions about that. One is, what would you do first, given that most of your direct reports have never done this and never been responsible to address these things and have never fostered someone unhappy with them to complain higher up, like you're dealing with people who aren't looking for this to happen to them. And relatedly, we have a culture here with the elementary schools where it seems that there's a lot of autonomy offered to the principals. And with regard to some of this racial stuff that's happening, because of that, it seems like, I guess, how do you feel about that autonomy in terms of the people, the principals or the administrators determining their own school culture? And I know there's a good side to that, but in terms of the racial equity, what steps would you take to get those policies in practice, citywide accountability, and to deal with that accountability issue, that autonomy issue in the individual schools?
I do believe in autonomy. I just have to be honest, but when it comes to practices such as this, it has to be district-wide. And that would be training staff for anybody who is in the school to know about them and to create an advisory, an external advisory that will be looking into these cases. Because sometimes, and I do not know school leaders, but I would love to develop a trusting relationship. And at the same time, I know that it's challenging to deal sometimes with a lot of issues that happen in school. But people who go through these microaggressions, I like the word that you're using, that usually don't want to go to the person that they report to. For some reason, I do understand that. Therefore, going back to, as a district policy, building systems, procedures of how people can go outside. And it's not that I won't trust these school leaders. It's just that sometimes those conversations cannot happen with the person that you report to. And that would be creating an advisory team with even external people that can give us a different lens on what will be the next steps. And if we have a policy with next steps about the intensity of the microaggression, open an investigation, being able to do a follow-up, and there are clear steps on what happens if it's first offense, second, third, and how intense that is. So I do believe in having a policy, because then we can follow it. And it's one side, in this case, it will be the district policy on zero tolerance.
Is it okay if I follow up on that a little bit? Like if there's a situation where an administrator or a supervisor might utilize an evaluation process to get a person in trouble, it's really worse than a microaggression. But it's like, it's a labor thing, but then the administrator, the supervisor could be like, oh, well, that person wasn't doing their job, so I needed to use this evaluation tool to document all the bad stuff they're doing. Whereas the educator might feel that it's unfairly being used to target them. And that is more than a microaggression. Would that system maybe take care of that as well? Like, how would you deal with these sort of things?
I think it should be the process and policy should take care of that, because at the end of the day, it's how the person feels that something's happening to this person. The evaluation, going back, it should never be a punitive way. It should be always a two-way street where people communicate, and it's to build, it's to support, to provide professional development, to be able to create some, how can I say this, some steps for the person who is being evaluated to move forward, but never to feel like I can use this as I got you and I'm going to get rid of you. So if, once again, with the advisory team that I will have to create with legal representation should be part of that, because it is something that that person is feeling, and it should be part of the same process and the same procedures. And I do hear you.
Thank you for that, Susan. The next question we have comes in our chat from Mei Hung, and she asks, we know that the global economy is a reality. As a superintendent of the Malden Public School District, how would you prepare our students to feel comfortable to navigate and contribute to this international market or within local diverse communities?
Thanks. I noticed that in your school, in the schools, a program of study says financial literacy, which is so critical for all our students. And we should never wait for high school. It should start in middle school, where students learn how to manage money, how to manage their own accounts in terms of if somebody gives them money or they're going to earn, or the different markets that exist over there, the different opportunities of investment. That actually will support our students to get to understand the global perspective. I would love to tap into the schools that have these programs where we can train the students who are doing an amazing job and go into the classrooms, into middle school classrooms, and teach other students on how to first take care of their own financial, support the parents with the financial expenses, understand where money comes from, understand how to save, understand how to invest, and they start looking at the global perspective. It is so easy right now that students can go and order things online that they don't see the transaction. It's so hard for students to understand how to money is expended when the parents are paying the credit card. So it would be good for to start teaching our students financial literacy, and then the global perspective on how the whole economy works in this world, and it changes every single day, especially with e-money. We don't need to carry money anymore. We just tap into things. So the value of actually money, because tapping a credit card or tapping something doesn't give that perspective that at the end of the day, somebody has to pay for it. So financial literacy should start, I would say in 5th grade, but I'm just going to say middle school now, and it will be great to have our amazing students at the Malden Public Schools, high schools, to go into the classrooms and teach their peers on how money works, the value of money, and also the headaches that comes with it if they do not plan ahead.
Great, thank you. So our next question in chat is from Heather Barry, and she asks, what are your views on setting students on tracks in 8th and 9th grade? What are your views on student-centered learning?
Okay. Let me ask for clarification, because we might be using different ways of words. So when you say track, means in a pathway that they go into a track and they can know that. If I can just ask, what is the tracking system that you're talking about? Because I use it there.
Where they're tentatively tracked by ability, and determine kind of how you set up maybe different tiers of learning. And I don't mean like tier 1 education, I mean tiers where they're on an AP track or they're on a different track, and they may not have had the opportunity to kind of bring all of their skills up to the same level, where students seen initially in a lower track maybe will eventually achieve a different type of track. And how do you guard against that?
All right. I know I'm not going to make many people happy, but this is me, right? I think it's a disservice that we do to our students when we put them in tracks. That's not how life works. Any student should have an opportunity to have access to high levels of education, and that the one track doesn't lead always to success, I'm sure. Or one track define you, we cannot play with the students' lives by defining their futures. We have to be able to look at how students are doing and support, provide them with support so they will have access to the acceleration programs, to AP programs, IB programs, to different pathways. And when I said pathways, that means careers, college, everything, but we cannot put our students in a bubble and say, this is it for you. Because that is, well, let me see, I'm more just to say, it's a way that we are actually not creating a culture of acceptance, a culture where we said, we are actually respecting students who come from different backgrounds, economical, emotionally, and we are not providing them with a setting where they can be successful and we cannot maximize their learning because we already determine the students' lives pathway in education. Is something that we definitely would love to explore, because I do believe that every single student should be selecting the courses with the support to have access to AP programs, accelerated programs, but every single program should be highly, highly rigorous to support our students by providing them with support. I'm not saying that the tracks that you're talking about might not be, might be good for the students in a way, but I don't believe in tracking. I believe in providing students with options and opportunities to define their futures, to give them the skills to talk about when things don't work and to say, I want to be part of that too. I don't want to just be here in this room. I want to be in the penthouse. So, okay, how do we get you to the penthouse? Let's work together. That is what my belief system is. Now, student center, I'm sorry, you say, you say about the student centers. The student centers, can you define that to me, please? I'm sorry, it's just that this will be the learning curve for me to find out how you determine these definitions. What is a student center for you?
Or student-centered learning, where they kind of design their program of study, you know, and it's not kind of already set up for them, and that they have an opportunity to explore and pursue things that they're interested in and not just kind of set topics.
Perfect.
Where the teachers act as coaches and the students are taking more responsibility for their learning.
So one of the things that I noticed is that you have an amazing, amazing program of studies. It, to me, was overwhelming. Like, oh my goodness, you offer so many courses in so many different settings, different schools. But it's like, what are the graduation requirements as a district? What are these things that students must do and be able to pass in order to get a high school diploma and certifications? Are the students, since they start exploring in middle school, do they know what these programs are at? And I would love students selecting some of the courses, but they should be some standard courses that we know will support the students moving forward. So there will be 4 years of something, 4 years of this type of math. And then they have the choice for the courses, but we have to be able to guide them in what is needed for career and colleges. And then they can select other classes. I do believe in students' choice and voice about what courses they need. And also the trajectory for graduation. What is the graduation requirements for Malden Public Schools? Starting from early childhood to high school, what is that trajectory? How do I, if I'm a student in 8th grade or 6th grade, how do I know what I need to do in order to be successful when I finish my high school? What is that trajectory? What it looks like? What information my family is getting so we can make a decision together?
Well, it looks like we've exhausted all of our questions in chat. Anybody feel free? Here we go. Patrick.
Thanks again. Can you explain in your experience as an administrator how you've gone about training the staff and the educators in your school buildings regarding the effects of trauma on students' learning?
Absolutely. One of the things that I like to find out is, first of all, what resources we have, what type of resources, and look at the multi-tier interventions that we are going to use in the school. So no one size fits all. So looking at colleges, looking at hospitals, where experts can come and do the training for our faculty and staff. Like our nurses might need a different type of training that our members of the school site council. Look at the classrooms. How do we actually get parents and teachers to be part of this training? What has my experience? In Boston Public Schools, we open, and I say in the high schools, the training for staff on how to work with cross-functional teams with people from different units, the wraparound services in the school were able to get trained on trauma and then define the roles that everybody was going to play. Once again, nurses needed different training, guidance counselors needed different training, and provide that tier support of training for staff. Together, they become a powerful team because everybody brings different elements of knowledge. So when they have to go into the classroom or provide services to families, they have their different perspectives. So I do believe a lot in student support teams that can be built in with this training, also with faculty and staff. I have done this in the school level. I have done it in the district level, where we get partners to provide that services. And once again, one size doesn't fit all, is that school leaders looking at the makeup and the structure of the schools and the need that they have according to the population is how we can provide a professional development. Because I don't like to waste time for teachers, guidance counselors, when what they're facing is not what the professional development is going to even mention or address. I just want to make sure that we get it within what is the need, what is the population that we serve, what do we see, what are the trends, then look at all the resources that we need to have in place, develop the plan for professional development that is going to be helping us to help students. So using data to inform our practice, to inform what type of professional development people need. As a district, it would be great to have professional development on trauma, on wellness, because we realize that a lot of our students have spent a lot of time on their own. They have become independent learners. So how do we address that with students where they're coming to settings where they're going to be told what to do, or they might not be able to move into the classrooms? So going back there, we have to customize the professional development that we need to provide to our practitioners, especially with trauma. It's a lot of training that should be, it has to happen to get our staff ready for September, because it's going to be really hard to have teachers in front of the classroom not knowing how to react when students are acting in certain ways because of what they're going through right now.
Thank you.
All right, one more reminder that if you have a question, please feel free. This is your chance. You can raise your hand, do it vocally, or type it in the chat. Bonnie.
Yeah, it's me again. I know from last week I did ask you this, but I think it might be good to say it again. Why are you choosing Malden? Like, why, coming from Boston, like, why would you, what's your interest in Malden? Thank you.
Thank you again. It has been part of my dream in my career. Become a teacher, a school leader, assistant superintendent, and I would love to be a superintendent. Why Malden? Malden is very similar to Boston in the terms of the diversity. One thing that I find it fascinating is that it's one community. And that is something I haven't experienced. There will be a learning curve. And look at the school, the makeup of the schools. Once again, looking just at your program studies, it's amazing. That we love to learn more about it, to see how we can work together and take Malden to the next level about special education is something that it comes in every forum, to look at the practices that we have in the cultural proficiency, building that in the district. And it's just a district that I find it really, really fascinating. They have been other districts, to be honest, that are open. They open jobs for superintendent positions, and I didn't apply because I don't want to apply to a place where I don't see myself. And I see myself in Malden. And I think it would be a great match. And yeah, I love the community. I know it because my family lives close by. I'm not going to say that I know the community 100% well. I am not going to say that, but I find it interesting, fascinating, and look at your schools. The makeup of the schools is really, really intriguing me. It would be a good challenge.
Well, I think if no one else has any questions, again, feel free to raise your hand or type it in chat. But Mei Hung, our director of the Chinese Cultural Connection, says Malden has a huge Asian population. Are you ready to learn more about Chinese culture?
Absolutely, yes. And we should do some international, if we are able to travel right soon, some international exchange programs where our students from Malden can go to China and be able to explore and learn about the culture. And so opening an exchange program will be great. I believe in internships and externships. So externships is where we send teachers as a group of practitioners to go and meet other teachers to learn about the culture. And they might not be in any specific program. It should be something that if somebody has interest in going to China, it would be great. I will be the first one to go. I will have my backpack, but opening the opportunity for externship, that means a lot of have a lot of collaboration with both countries, cities, towns. So that will be, we will spend time together. It will be something good for our community when people experience the culture in a different way, that actually they are in the country. When we come back, we wouldn't have that many conversations about, racism, because it becomes more of the understanding. So absolutely, yes, I would love to create, if it doesn't exist, externships for teachers to travel and eventually students too.
May would be a great partner.
Yeah.
So I don't see any more questions in the chat. I don't see any more hands up. So at this point, we have our question to you is, do you have any questions for all of us as a community? What do you want to know? What do you want to hear from the people here tonight?
So first I want to say thank you so much. I know it's very late, and thank you for taking the time to come and hear me. And I would love to be able to learn more about each of you. We don't have the time, but I would love to know how you're doing with these hard times. And I do hear, and I'm sorry, I'm going back to, let me see. Oh, I think she's not Elizabeth. I think it was Suzanne. I do hear your voice and concerns. And I'm taking notes in here because I hear it in your voice. And most of you are making comments, and I'm like, how can we all together collaborate to change our practices and to revamp the way that we are doing things by respecting each other and by building a community that cares for each other, regardless of the color of your skin, the language that you speak, the way that you look, the way that you sound. But how do we build that community without any boundaries? Like, we actually are one community and we understand so much each other that we don't need to have so many policies, so many different protocols, because we will be respecting each other. So thank you for that. And the question is, how are you getting ready for September? That is the question I have as a community. Our babies are coming. Are we ready? So I don't know if people want to answer or that, I don't know.
I was going to say, does anybody want to take on that question of how are you getting ready for September? Well, I guess I'll answer it as a parent. I'm not quite sure how my child is going to adapt to being back into the classroom full time without having their resident snack lunch lady at home that's able to deliver food every half hour to them.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to figure out, they didn't eat this much when they were in school. They had lunch and snack and that's it. And how come they're eating so much now? So I'm a little concerned that his needs for food wouldn't be met. But in all honesty, without joking,
yeah, I know.
Aside, I think there's concern because of the lack of socialization for a year. And our kids are so proficient in so much technology. So I think they were able to master moving into this technological world because beforehand they were on phones and on tablets and on video games, but they did have those 6-7 hours a day where they were interacting with human beings, and now they've lost that for a year. So I guess my fear is that regression in socialization with their peers, socialization with teachers, and how are we going to get that back?
Right. It's a very, very, very valid concern, and I think Patrick was addressing that about what type of training and trauma staff will get because we are getting used to things that are new to us, and our students, you're right, coming from a very a different environment and coming to see schools that don't look the same anymore because we have removed furniture. We have steps that students have to follow, saying 6 feet apart, arrows that show the stairwells. You are so right. That's a huge concern. Yeah.
Can I jump in too, if that's all right? I'll
You
say,
are facilitating the meeting. I'm here. I'm just here.
I'll say too, on the flip side, right, as an educator, I think two things that come to my mind a lot thinking about the return. One is, how do we really prioritize the social emotional needs of our kids and our adults, particularly where, we were already ingrained to sort of think about our kids as the whole child. But now I think more than ever, we think about, are they hungry? Do they have what they need? How is their home life? How is their family? What can we do to help them? I think that's become so much more of a part of the daily thought process for educators than ever before. And on the other end, I keep thinking about, with this push to get back to normalcy.
Oh my God, yes.
Normalcy.
Yeah.
How do we go back but not leave everything behind, right? Because some things have worked. We've seen some kids who weren't who didn't see mainstream school as for them, and they're happy and they're thriving. And how do we maintain some of those practices to keep those kids engaged and not lose that momentum while we're also working with kids on the other end of the spectrum?
Right. It's work that we have to start doing now, right, to get ready.
Yeah.
Just to let you know that so in this school we have been open, and we test faculty every single week. We are on Monday. We are going to start doing pool testing for students, including students with with disabilities. Do I say that because that means that somebody has to do the test for the students, and has not been easy. It's a lot of manpower, a lot of things, communication with families. So the question is, how do we get ready in Malden Public Schools for September? So yeah, it's a lot of things to start planning.
Patrick, you want to jump in?
Sure. I think one of the challenges that we have is being able to meet each student where they are. This whole past year has not been a level playing field, unfortunately, for many of them. So as incredible as our frontline teachers and educators are, being able to meaningfully assess the needs of these kids, not only social emotionally, but academically, is going to be a particular challenge. And as we continue to push through, as we did last September, we're likely to do again to new grade levels, trying to give the attention to those students who need it the most, who have suffered a level of regression that we unfortunately haven't been able to meaningfully assess at this point, is going to be a particular challenge.
I agree. Yeah. Thank you, Patrick.
Bonnie.
I agree with everything that Jen, Adam, Patrick are saying. First, I want to say Jen and I have the same age, our children in the same school and same age. And I have to tell you that 10:45, when it's supposed to be lunchtime, it's recess time at my house because it's too early to eat. So I know there's a lot of things that they get away with being at home, and especially that food thing, snacking while the camera's off, and there's a lot of changes. So I have two children in the system, one in the high school, one in the 7th grade, one who would love to go back and is anxious to, and one who doesn't want to go back as much. I do worry for both of them about socially, obviously I worry about academics, but I think this whole year, now we can say a year, next week we can say it's been a year.
Yeah.
Just that whole social aspect. And it's not just my students. I know, because I'm also an educator, I also know it's going to be really tough for all students, especially those who aren't as outgoing.
Right.
It's just going to be very different. And I don't know, you ask, how are we getting ready? I have no idea how I'm getting ready, because I don't know what it's going to be like.
Right.
I just don't know. That's my 2 cents, but I totally agree with what Jen said.
Yeah. Our students learn how to become more independent, and that's not what we had before. They became more savvy with technology than adults right away. I mean, they were advanced, but now they're super advanced. How do we get ready for the students? And academically, Patrick, I hear you loud and clear. How are they going to do? How are we going to be able to run diagnostic assessments and be able to provide the individual support that they will need, and the social aspect, and even the structure of the day is going to be something that we should be planning already, getting parents involved, getting students. I met with an amazing group of students during one of my forums that will be great to have together to brainstorm how they're going to get together, coming back, or not coming back. Some of them really like to be remote. So is the district going to be able to provide that opportunity for some students? Wellness, some students put weight on, a lot of weight on, that is how do we get them into the health routine of moving in the buildings where we say, you stay in a classroom, teachers don't move, students don't move. So a lot of things that need to be thought about and start planning now, because September is coming now very soon. We have only 72 days of school left, and that's it. What will be September 1st, what it's going to look like for our students and our educators too. Oh.
Kevin, Sue, you want to jump in?
Hi, Kevin.
Familiar face.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi there.
Hi, Sue. Pleasure to meet you, Sue.
I think we've got to recognize that students have endured more than a pandemic. And what I mean is sort of the political context, the violence, the instability. And, I think that they will come back impacted by that significantly. And interacting with them remotely, you get a glimpse, maybe, but you've got some kids who are not engaged, but have experienced that, and they're going to come back changed people in terms of trauma, in terms of attitudes, in terms of feelings about white educators, about how they're being treated in society. And I think we should be ready for that.
I absolutely agree with you, because we are looking, we talk about academic, social, emotional, but you're right. There has been some trauma in the country that the students have seen on a flat platform and haven't been able to talk about it as a group, and how students are going to react towards what has been happening in the nation. It would be great to start planning those forums where students feel safe and comfortable to talk about things. Because yeah, the concern will be that students might act in different ways, because we have seen some examples of how adults have behaved on TV, and it's acceptable. So Kevin, I 110% agree with you. Is how do we address this, and how do we get ready? And going back to what Patrick said, the adults, how do we get them ready to have this conversation with the students? Because at the end of the day, in September, it's going to be teachers, paraprofessionals in front of students. How do we get people, staff ready for that? And our students also feeling comfortable to talk about what experience with the trauma that in some cases it became really, really hard. Some students have a hard time being at home because it was not easy. And they themselves went through a lot of things. We have a large percentage students that were taken by DCF because things were wrong, bad things were happening to them in homes. But in September, I'm sure you had the same case, some similar cases. We are going to have them back in September. How do we get our nurses, school leaders ready for this?
Thank you, everyone. Really, really great perspective, I think, from the community and, the needs. So as we're approaching the 7 o'clock hour, I don't want to keep people too long. I know, bedtime comes quick for little ones and dinner. And so do you have any closing remarks that you'd like to offer us before we part ways?
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely, yes. Thank you for having this conversation. More than a forum for me was a conversation, and I can feel your concerns, and I can hear it, and I know that I'm the right person to lead the Malden Public Schools. I know that we have a lot of work to do together, and definitely we have to start soon because September is coming soon. Of course, it's still more to come from my perspective, but I just have to say it has been a pleasure meeting each of you through Zoom. Hopefully one day I will be able to shake your hand or the elbow, and looking forward to meet more of the students at the Malden Public Schools. Definitely has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being honest about what is in your mind, and thank you for your questions. I appreciate that very much. Thank you so much. And to the interpreters, thank you for your time, doing an amazing job. Thank you. And the two wonderful facilitators, yay! Thank you very much. And I see kids in there. I see, oh my God, hi. Hi, family. Hi, nice to see. Oh my God, there are 3 of them. Amazing, wonderful. Yes, that's great to see kids. Never mind. So thank you so much. Go and have dinner, and we'll see you until we meet again. Another family. Oh my God. Hi.
Well, thank you so much, Lehia.
Thank you.
We're so excited you were able to join us and see all the kids.
Yes, I love that. Oh my goodness.
Just a reminder for everybody, we are very excited to welcome Lehia back next Thursday, March 11th, for her interview with the school committee at 6 o'clock. All the Zoom links and et cetera are up on maldenps.org/supersearch. And it was great to have you all with us tonight.
Bye, guys.
much.
Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. Somebody give me a heart. Yay.